Good evening, I'm Mr. Michael and you're watching Kini News, the show that brings you today's biggest stories. The government has decided to abandon home quarantine after at least 3 clusters in the country started from imported cases. Starting Friday, people entering the country will be quarantined at dedicated isolation facilities. Malaysians and non-citizens permitted to enter the country will once again be made to undergo mandatory 2-week quarantine at government-specified quarantine centres starting July 24th. This means beginning this Friday, self-quarantine at home will no longer be an option.
Kerajaan memandang serius insiden ketidakpatuhan SOP, home quarantine ataupun kuarantin di rumah ini yang telah menyebabkan penularan jangkitan Covid-19 kepada ahli keluarga dan masyarakat sekeliling. Kita pun tahu, tersebar di dalam media sosial, seorang yang sepatutnya berada di rumah dengan wristbandnya makan di restoran. Ini jelas melanggar SOP yang dikeluarkan.
All those to be quarantined will have to bear the full cost of quarantine services. Foreigners wishing to enter Malaysia will be required to undergo COVID-19 swab tests in their country of origin within 3 days of flying to Malaysia. The government's decision comes following concerns that many citizens were not adhering to the stipulated standard operating procedures during the Recovery Movement Control Order, including those undergoing mandatory quarantine. New COVID-19 clusters have begun to emerge in recent days, and the Perak Health Department is working to track down a woman who was said to have breached the COVID-19 house surveillance order. Malaysia went from having 63 active cases to more than double that figure in less than 2 weeks. The recent COVID-19 infection trends are worrying, Health Ministry Director General Dr. Norisham Abdullah said today, as Malaysia recorded another 15 new cases. On July 9th, the country had 63 active cases, but now that number has grown to 130 active cases. From the 15 new cases recorded today, 4 were imported infections, and the remaining 11 were local transmissions. A large portion of the local cases are from a new cluster called the Sentosa cluster, which emerged at a hospital in Kuching, Sarawak. The 4 imported cases involve people entering the country from the Netherlands, Saudi Arabia, United Kingdom and Indonesia.
Yang pertama, coronavirus masih dalam masyarakat kita, dalam komuniti. Kita masih belum berjaya untuk tamatkan penularan COVID-19 dalam masyarakat kita. Jadi apa yang penting ialah apabila kita kembali dengan kehidupan seharian kita, kita kena patuh kepada SOP. Jadi Kementerian Kesihatan melihat ramai di kalangan kita bila nampak kes makin berkurangan, jadi kita pun dah ambil mudah dan juga leka untuk kita mengamalkan iaitu budaya yang memakai mask ataupun penjarakan sosial.
There are presently 19 active clusters, of which 13 were recorded in just the last 10 days. Dr. Hisham welcomed the government's decision to abandon home quarantine and reimpose specialized isolation stations for people entering the country from abroad. He pointed out that at least 3 clusters in the country started from imported cases. No new fatalities were reported today, while 7 people were discharged after recovering. The Prime Minister's office clarified that Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin's televised address yesterday contained some errors. The matter was also discussed in Parliament today. Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin's address to the nation on Monday contained inaccurate figures. Finance Minister Tengku Zafrul Abdul Aziz admitted this in Parliament today after being quizzed on the matter by Kulim Bandar Baru MP Saifuddin Nasution. So what did the Prime Minister get wrong?
Kadang-kadang dalam kegarahan itu, kita sebenarnya exaggerate dengan izin. Saya bagi contoh. Saya membaca dengan teliti pengumuman Perdana Menteri semalam. Faedah yang dinikmati oleh 1.4 juta e-hailing. Yang berdaftar dengan APAD sebenarnya 120,000 aja. Tapi Perdana Menteri terus mengumumkan faedah itu dinikmati oleh 1.4 juta dengan komitmen 34 juta. Kalau 1.4 juta terima RM500, sebenarnya 700 juta.
Muhyiddin also said that 477,000 taxi drivers, tour bus drivers and bus drivers received RM600 cash allowances for a total of RM28.8 million.
Mengenai nombor-nombor yang dipetik tadi daripada ucapan Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri, ada nombor yang kurang tepat, ya. Jadi pihak Jadi saya percaya
Tolong
kebetulan akan diumumkan ya oleh Pejabat Perdana Menteri. Mungkin saya boleh beri nombor yang betul pada dalam dewan ini. Inisiatif tunai bagi pemandu taksi, pemandu pelancong dan pemandu bas ni semuanya RM110 juta. Bagi tunai secara one off RM500 pemandu sepenuh masa e-hailing, dan bagi taksi RM600 juga bagi pemandu pelancong dan pemandu bas. Jumlah pembayaran seperti mana yang berhormat cakap tadi, 22.7 juta, penerimanya 37,100 penerima, e-hailing RM34 juta, 68,300 penerima. Ada lagi yang menunggu bayaran 4,800 pemandu taksi kerana mereka baru nak membarui kad pemandu.
Yesterday, Mohidin's televised speech provided an update on government efforts to inject money into the economy and to warn Malaysians against complacency in taking measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Last night, former Transport Minister Anthony Loke pointed out that the number of e-hailing drivers originally cited by Mohidin was wrong, since only 120,000 drivers were registered with the Land Public Transport Agency. Dr. Mahathir Mohamad told Parliament today the key role reducing the wealth disparity played in bringing peace between the races. Former Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir Mohamad told Parliament today why Kuala Lumpur has not seen race riots since May 13, 1969. According to him, this is due to equitable property ownership between the races.
Kita tidak dapat menukar kaum, tetapi kita mampu mengurangkan jarak perbezaan ekonomi antara kaum. Jika jarak ini dapat dikurangkan, kelainan kaum dapat dikurangkan kesan buruknya.
While debating the Yang di-Pertuan Agong's address, Mahathir added that racial differences alone would not be enough to spark violence.
Dasar ekonomi baru adalah hasil daripada kajian terhadap sebab-sebab peristiwa 13 Mei 1969 berlaku. Hasilnya ialah pengurangan jarak pencapaian dalam bidang ekonomi antara kaum di Malaysia. Jika pada 1969 perusuh berpendapat segala yang ada di bandar adalah milik orang lain, hari ini terdapat banyak dari pemilik dalam bandar terdiri dari kaum mereka sendiri. Dengan itu, jika mereka merusuh, kaum mereka juga akan jadi mangsa. Sebab itu, sejak Mei 1969, tidak ada rusuhan besar-besaran yang berlaku di Kuala Lumpur.
However, Mahathir said more needed to be done to reduce wealth inequality between the races. One way forward, he said, was to use the results of the national census to come up with a plan to identify the differences between the races and what could be done to overcome them. He added that he hoped the government would continue with Pakatan Harapan's Shared Prosperity Vision 2030. Malaysians are already stretched financially by the COVID-19 pandemic. This is why the government will not burden Malaysians further, a minister told Parliament today. Environment and Water Minister Tuan Ibrahim Tuan Man said the government will not increase the water tariff. He said the government has given their assurance as the people are faced with economic burdens as well as the COVID-19 pandemic.
Saya ingin tegaskan bahawa dalam situasi rakyat berdepan dengan bebanan ekonomi yang teruk, pandemik Covid-19 yang masih belum selesai, tekanan bebanan hidup, saya ingin beri jaminan dalam mulut ini, kerajaan tidak akan menaikkan tarif air dalam situasi rakyat masih terbeban ini. Berarti kerajaan akan menanggung kos dalam situasi susah. Sebagai kerajaan prihatin dengan tawaran pelbagai yang telah diberi, kita jamin bahawa rakyat tidak perlu risau dalam situasi yang kritikal begini.
Tuan Ibrahim said this in Parliament today in response to a question on whether the government could guarantee that water tariffs will not be raised after the Langat 2 water treatment plant is handed over to Pengurusan Air Selangor. He said any nationwide water review will take into consideration the parties involved in water management and the National Water Services Commission SPAN as the monetary body of water supply. He added that they would hold discussions with all parties concerned. Coming up next, the COVID-19 vaccine's human trials show promise. The WHO welcomed progress on research into vaccines to counter COVID-19, but warned there was still much work to be done. Early data from trials of 3 potential COVID-19 vaccines released on Monday, including a closely watched candidate from Oxford University, increased confidence that a vaccine can train the immune system to recognize and fight the novel coronavirus without serious side effects. Whether any of these efforts will result in a vaccine capable of protecting billions of people and ending the global pandemic that has claimed more than 600,000 lives is still far from clear. All will require much larger studies to prove they can safely prevent infection or serious disease.
But again, there is a long way to go. These are phase 1 studies. We now need to move into larger scale real-world trials, but it is good to see more data and more products moving into this very important phase of vaccine discovery, and we congratulate our colleagues for the progress they have made.
The vaccine being developed by British drug maker AstraZeneca along with Oxford University induced an immune response in all study participants who received 2 doses without any worrisome side effects. A coronavirus vaccine under development by the CanSino Biologics and China's Military Research Unit likewise showed that it appears to be safe and induced an immune response in most of the 508 healthy volunteers who had 1 dose of the vaccine, researchers reported. Some 77% of the study volunteers experienced side effects like fever or injection site pain, but none considered to be serious. Both the AstraZeneca and CanSino vaccines use a harmless cold virus known as the adenovirus to carry genetic material from the novel coronavirus into the body. Studies on both vaccines were published in the journal The Lancet. None of these leading contenders had shown side effects that could sideline their efforts so far, but all must still prove they are safe and effective in trials involving thousands of subjects, including those at high risk for severe COVID-19, such as the elderly and people with diseases. Historically, just 6% of vaccine candidates end up making it to market, often after a years-long testing process. Vaccine makers hope to drastically compress that timeline through faster trials and by manufacturing at scale even before the products prove successful. China has threatened a forceful counterattack in response to Britain's announcement that it would suspend its extradition treaty with Hong Kong. Britain suspended its extradition treaty with Hong Kong on Monday. Its aim is to prevent someone being extradited from the UK to Hong Kong only to be sent to China. The move escalates Britain's dispute with China after it introduced a national security law for the former British colony.
And the government has decided to suspend the extradition treaty immediately and indefinitely. And I should also tell the House that we would not consider reactivating those arrangements unless and until there are clear and robust safeguards which are able to prevent extradition from the UK being misused under the new national security legislation.
Britain believes a new security law in Hong Kong breaches guarantees of freedoms, which include an independent judiciary. Officials in Hong Kong and Beijing say the law is vital to cover weaknesses in national security defences, which they say were exposed by recent pro-democracy and anti-China protests. Britain's decision is the latest sign of tension between the two countries. Last week, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson ordered Huawei to be removed from Britain's 5G network by the end of 2027. China has accused Britain of pandering to the United States. And in response to Monday's extradition move, China warned Britain to stop going further down the wrong path. And that is all from me today. For more stories, you can go to KiniTV.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and Facebook for the latest news updates. I'll be back with more tomorrow. Same time, same place. I'm Prasad Michael. Thank you for watching.